Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uwayama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, August 13th. We've got a bunch of camp updates to talk to you about. Some injury news. Matty Augustine has broken his foot. Dallas Golden was seen in the pit. Chasten Smith has, I think, his wrist. He hurt his wrist, and so he's going to be out for an extended period of time. And we've got some stuff going on at quarterback. Teddy Gerard and Noah Grubbs are taking more reps. And so lots of team updates and things like that to talk about. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. As always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ and all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches, and also members of the beat. Jamie, Jack Sobel, BGI, got caught up in the rain in a ESQ shirt, and he said it performed incredibly in wet weather, and I think that's super important. We got to add it to the ad reads. It performs well in the rain. He felt comfortable the entire time. So I think that's relevant. Whether you're looking for the perfect fitting suit, a standout sport coat, or a perfect tuxedo for weddings and galas, ESQ's master tailors blend traditional hand stitching in each garment with Italy and England's best fabrics. Check out God's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD, get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. It's super relevant, Jamie. Game days, the weather's not always perfect. You can still wear your ESQ to a game day if the weather looks like it could take a turn. So I think that's relevant. I think I kind of buried the lead. Stephen A. Smith talked to the Notre Dame football team, Jamie.
Okay, yeah, I don't even want to give.
We should have gone live. We should have gone live show, like emergency pod. Marcus Freeman will let anyone talk to these guys. What does he even have to say? Who is this guy?
I don't know. You know what?
I don't like it.
That's the first guy that's come out where you're like, read the room.
What are you doing, Marcus? That
guy's a moron. Just vibe killer. This guy who was ripping on you like a couple months ago. Like, why are you bringing him in? So then he's gonna kiss, everyone's butt in person.
That being said,
I think the thing is, though, is you could say, hey, maybe this is some 4D chess here. Because guess what? Stephen A. Smith, when Notre Dame comes up, I had a chance to go and talk to Marcus Freeman. Like, he's going to go full on and be like, Notre Dame. He's going to do his whole thing and kiss their butts there, too, because that's how it works. That's how it works with that thing. And, I mean, this guy just... I don't think he watched a lot of football or college football, definitely, based on anyone who's seen any of his takes on First Take or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if this guy watches a lot of sports, to be honest. I think he's busy. He's busy with his takes, busy networking with people, making sure that he's getting the highest paid salary. Vibe killer, just a vibe killer.
I've had some things to say about Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. But hear this. Oh, man, it's fun, man. Look, all content is good content. So, look, whatever's fine. We can move on from it. Whatever's not fine is something that's not fine is the health of Matty Augustine's foot. We haven't had these for, the fifth metatarsal, Jamie, has popped up again. And it has reared its ugly head. He's broken his foot, and he's kind of turned the offensive line. I mean, certainly the offensive line, position battle. He's kind of taken that offline for the right guard situation. Although, it has been mentioned a couple of times, like Ashton Craig is viable as a guard. I mean, Mike Denbrock talked about it. Joe Rudolph talked about it. Is this a competition now between like kind of Joe Otting and Sullivan Absher? Maybe not in the near term, but over time. Because if Joe Otting is a good enough center to where it's like, hey, we can move Ashton Craig out to the right if that's a problem, I think that's also an option for Notre Dame. How viable do you think that is?
I talked about it way before we knew about
Yes, you did.
Matty Augustine's thing. Like I think it's always been on the table, and I think that's the thing is like, um, I think it was always about getting the five best. So it is right now. You would say that it's a competition between those two because I think you're looking at who's 5 and 6 right now,
Yeah.
and those guys are 5 and 6 because when Craig is healthy, he's in the five.
Yeah.
He's locked in. So it's yeah, very much going to be a competition there. And obviously, it would have been. It sucks for Matty Augustine that he's hurt, but you can also say that he was not with the ones, whatever. So it's not like he was a definitive starter or anything. He was obviously competing there, but he was in that mix to play. And it just takes one person off the table now. For right now, he'll be back, but takes him off the table, and then it is going to be between Absher and at guard and Otting. And if Otting plays at a certain level, then I think they're going to feel like, see what it looks like. They're going to look at the best combination and all that too. I don't think that Craig is for anyone. I saw some people who are like, well, what about when gosh, I forget his name now. Zeke Carell. When Zeke Carell played, it's like, yeah, they're not even close to the same player. Like it's just one guy's a lot smaller, and it's a totally different body type and different type of player. And Carell had only been a center, never really tried him. They went, it was out of desperation, really. Craig was a guard before he was a center, and then he got moved in, right? So I think that's kind of where there's a big difference there. And I always kind of said that Craig is one of these guys who was very much like a Hainsey Patterson type, where he could probably play all five positions, really. And similar to Knapp too, right? Where same kind of thing. So I don't think it's that big of a change if he goes to center. Certainly you have to look at it like Absher is obviously like a big dude.
Yes.
But what level is he playing at? If he's playing at a really, really high level, then guess what? It'll be him and Craig there, inside. If not, then Otting's got a chance to take it, and we'll see if Otting is playing at a really high level.
Yeah. Pat Subkowski asked, is Absher that bad? No, he is not.
No.
He's a good player. It's just like, is he among the best five is the question. And it's one of those things where he hasn't outright won the job yet, right? He was competing with Augustine, and Augustine got hurt. You never want someone to win the job just on not a technicality, but just by default. You don't want that. So it allows someone else to compete for time and be among the best five on the line. So that's just kind of the reality of it.
Just to add to that too, just because Coogan, wasn't starting at the beginning, obviously he wasn't a bad player.
Right. Exactly.
And same with Rocco Spindler, right?
Same with Joe Otting, for that matter.
Yeah. They've gone and done this before. Notre Dame was always deeper than the average team when it comes to who they have up front. There's very few years where they don't have 7-8 guys that you could kind of like, guys could step in and be like starter quality. Obviously there's levels to certain guys, but guys can step in. And I think too, like with someone like Styles Prescott, you don't expect him to be play that much if Black and Lambert are doing great and all that too. But if he had to play, I bet he'd probably do good. Like it's just where but it's all relative to where they're at and like kind of who can step up next. And I think they've always done a good job of having the next guy ready. Absher started 5 games at the end of last year. I mean, I wouldn't say he didn't light the world on fire, but he was solid, and he's a better player than he was then.
Yeah, he's huge, like you said. You did kind of touch on my next point, though. Would you have said that that Augustine was next in line at tackle as well, or? And I'm thinking of Lambert at this point.
I think he probably would have been. I think he probably would have been the guy who was next in line there. Yeah.
So that's kind of that is kind of where I'm going with this. It's like there are right guard implications, of course, but there's also tackle depth implications to this as well. And so I think that sits out there. So how do you? I mean, part of it's hard because you haven't gotten a chance to look at someone like Prescott, right? Or you haven't gotten a chance to look at the other tackles. Just something that I was thinking about when, kind of thinking about this show and prepping, and I knew what we were going to talk about was, I think Will Black worked right tackle last year.
No, he was guard.
He was never a right tackle.
No, they worked him at guard pretty much the whole year because they want him to get used to playing there.
No, it was Gerby who said he had worked at right tackle as a freshman. That's right. I'm thinking of the wrong person. I'm thinking of the wrong interview that I was listening to. So I guess to your point, to that point, then how do you kind of see that playing out, or is it just completely unknowable?
I think it's unknowable, but I did hear that Prescott had a really good summer and that he was somebody that they felt like, hey, he could play now, where that maybe wasn't the case before, right? And obviously he was someone too that when he first came in, his first year was basically wiped off the table because he had this like leg injury that like kind of screwed him. So he was behind. So last year was kind of like his first year where he got like a full year. And so it kind of makes sense that this would be the time that he could kind of get in the mix. Obviously the tackle depth it's hurt when you lose a guy like Augustine, and you just kind of don't know what could be next there. But also, you got to remember that Anthony Knapp can play tackle, and he could go and play tackle. And so, if they think that's the best thing, they would maybe move him out to tackle, and maybe whoever is the next guard.
I mean, and that's a situation where you could move Craig to guard and then Otting to center. And then, you're doing
totally.
That. It's so many, obviously not what you want. That's so many moving pieces, right?
It's not what you want, but if you think about kind of what has happened in other years, like can happen, right? Like 2024, they had a lot of injuries.
Yes.
And they had to kind of get through it. Last year, obviously, you're losing 2 starters and you had to deal with that. You had 2 starters who were basically out for the year. Well, you had to deal with that too, right? So 2019 was another year where I think I was Hainsey and Kramer, basically their whole right side of the line went out, right? Bars missed the 2018 season. But then all of a sudden it's like, well, first it's Trevor Ruland, and then no, Aaron Banks is ready. And then Aaron Banks ended up playing really well. Later on becomes an All-American, right? So I think there's a whole bunch of scenarios there that it's kind of hard to say. Like, not that I would say like, hey, it's a good thing if like Grayson McKeough is playing or that he's ready or anything like that. But we don't know if it gets down to it. He could be somebody who has to play at some point because you just don't know how it's going to play out. And then sometimes that's how, like Ashton Craig having to be like the third guy in, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, the third guy, this guy wasn't even taking snaps, goes against Clemson, like plays better than Corral and I can't remember who the other center was, but who the guys he replaced in that game. So and then never lost a starting spot from there. So you just kind of don't know. The way I always look at it is like Notre Dame, basically everybody's a blue chip that they recruit. Guys are going to develop and get better. It's proven under Joe Rudolph, and you just got to kind of see how it kind of shakes out with injuries and all that.
Yeah. Matt McCarthy's asking about Craig to right guard and Otting at center. We talked about it a bunch, Matt, about, I don't know, 10 minutes ago, something like that, right at the start of this conversation. So viable, we believe that to be a viable option for Notre Dame, should that prove to be the best 5 that Notre Dame can put on the offensive line. Dallas Golden, it was seen in the pit, and that was kind of news. He, I think he was said the team was in pads, he was in t-shirt and shorts. So working in the pit. I have some intel on this. This is upper body injury, and it's not the back, and it's expected that he's going to be back fairly soon. So there's going to be a super long-term injury before camp closes. He'd probably be back with the team. But that has kind of shaken things up in the nickel position with Jaden Sanders. He was seen taking reps yesterday. There was a one-on-one rep that Caden Finley beat him on looked like a fade from the slot, which was, first of all, like a really nice catch and throw from, I believe it was that Gerard who made that throw? I believe
Gerard,
it was, yes. Really good catch and throw about that. And look, this is that also shows the quality of what we've been talking about this wide receiver room, where whatever the ceiling may be, like you have a true freshman who's beating Jaden Sanders, who's running with the ones at field, and he's hitting them back, right? I mean, he's hitting him for a big play, right? So that just kind of shows the quality there. We talked about. I was very, very impressed with the physical makeup of Caden Finley. He's obviously making plays in camp, so that's interesting. I think that Jaden Sanders at nickel is good. I think that Christian Gray. Well, we talked about it on Tuesday about how I was kind of like a light went on for me in terms of Christian Gray at the nickel spot. I do think this takes away some versatility if he's not available, of course. I do think it takes away some versatility from what they like to do, because he's the one that they like to drop into that safety spot. He has some of that in his background. So I think there's something that you lose with Dallas Golden, but Notre Dame will be more than serviceable with Gray and Sanders at the nickel spot if it ever came to that. And of course, there's other options like Luke Talich and things like that. Anything from you on this, Jamie?
No, I just think if, like you said, like it's not going to be a long-term injury. He's still going to be there in a week, 2 weeks, or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So I just think right now, like maybe you say, well, that takes it, and Christian Gray is going to be the starter, like which probably was going to be the case anyways, but now it kind of cements it. Like would be tough for Dallas Golden to come out and come back with like limited time in the rest of the camp and win the job. Doesn't really matter for this season as long as he can come back and get to a spot where he can still play and contribute. But I think one of the things with the DBs in general is they just have enough depth where they can kind of mix and match there. It's always going to be a thing. Like, I mean, if you miss somebody and someone else has to step in. But I just really think they can do so many different things. Like we talked about, like them possibly, I wrote about it in Six Thoughts too, about like the possibility of them going big nickel with an extra safety there. That kind of goes back to what you were saying too, with the safety, dropping another guy back there. So they can do a lot of different versatility things there, whether that is like a Luke Talich who kind of makes sense as a big nickel, but we're good stuff about Joey O'Brien and how he's doing. Obviously, Ethan Long is a guy who's still out there making plays and doing a lot of stuff too. So I think it's just one of these things where I won't even talk it into existence, but they're just in a really good spot at DB where they haven't been, where, it's not Lowood tearing his Achilles and you're like, Kavari Russell has never played defense and now he has to start at corner, right? It's not those days anymore.
Imagine Javon Osborne having to be a starting corner on a 12-0 football team. That would be wild. Like that is so crazy. Do you think this has kind of downstream effects on the battle at field corner? Jaden Sanders taking reps then at nickel, and this obviously elevates DJ McKinney, and he's able to take more field reps. I believe he ran with the ones yesterday in the tempo drill. Now, again, these are tempo drills, and everything that happens in the first 25 minutes of these sessions that the media gets to view is going to be amplified because that is all we get, right? So maybe later on in 7-on-7 and in team drills, it was Jaden Sanders running in that. We can't know that, right? So, we're just going with what we got, right? do you think it could have downstream effects to where it's like, okay, Jaden Sanders isn't repping the field as much? Is it possible? How much does it actually matter? It seems like Notre Dame has two starting caliber corners in McKinney and Sanders at the field.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, we don't know if they're saying like, okay, well, we got to just prepare for this just in case. So Sanders, today you're going to take reps at nickel, and DJ, you're going to go up with the ones for today, and that's how it is. So we really don't know if that's the case, and if like what their confidence level is with Sanders there, like, because it could have been like Mark Zachary was with the ones in the spring, right? So I think where they're at too, if Jaden Sanders is one of the best like 5 guys, he will find a way on the field. And just in terms of just corners and period, I think it's pretty obvious that they're going to play way more people this year. Like they're just, because the talent is good enough, right? And like 2023, they played 4 corners, and obviously like Ben Morrison and Cam Hart played the bulk of it, but they had Jade Mickey played over 200 snaps. Christian Gray played 198 snaps that year. I think you're going to see like the 3rd and 4th guys play, and really like probably like, 5, if we're talking nickel and stuff too, you're going to see at least 5 guys period play like at corners specifically. Outside corner, slot corner, you're going to see at least 5 guys because they have that number that's good enough, right? So and maybe there's things that shift around, but it's also why you have to train somebody at multiple spots, and you got to cross train them, because you just don't want to be in a position where all of a sudden, man, they don't got anybody there at that nickel spot if somebody else goes down.
Yeah. We'll mention Blake Hebert away from the team for what Notre Dame is calling personal reasons. We don't know anything to do with why he's been away from the team. It has been multiple practices, though. So first and foremost, hopefully everything with him is good and he's fine and everything's good. It just like maybe something came up. I don't know. But hopefully everything's fine. Practically speaking, from a football point of view, this is obviously a huge opportunity for Gerard and Noah Grubbs to work with the second team. These are second team reps that they're getting. They've kind of talked about wanting to, Gino Guidugli talked about wanting to get Gerard up to speed. And obviously they brought him in for a reason. They asked him to come early, right, and reclassify. So obviously they want to give him a chance. First of all, what have you seen from Gerard in terms of his throwing? Because the kid throws a pretty ball, and he throws a really good deep ball as well. Like obviously the first day he was sailing them, but he was excited. He settled down, and now he's dropped a couple in the bucket that we've seen. So how has he looked to you? And where do you kind of, I don't know that Notre Dame really is excited about having to have a true freshman be the backup, but that might be the case if Blake Hebert continues to miss camp, because it's just practically speaking, they got to get these guys ready to go.
Yeah, well, I also think that, I personally didn't think Blake Hebert was going to end up being the backup at any point. So I just never thought, no, he's not transferring Sidar. Not that we have heard or anything. He's just
no.
Right
like
now,
again, we don't know anything about it. Like truly, we don't.
Yeah,
and I don't want to speculate.
But I'm just saying that within, first of all, when a person misses multiple practices and it's a competition to win the backup job, it's going to hurt you no matter what, right? So I think that already kind of puts it there where I would almost, it'd be hard for me to see him be the backup now if he's back. And I would say that, but just period too, like, I think one of the things is I just don't envision Blake Hebert as being like the next guy. And not that doesn't mean he can't be the backup this year, but I think if it's close, they're going to give it to one of the freshmen, right? Like, I think that's the thing. If it's close, if it's a tie, the tie goes to the guy that they think has probably the best shot at being you know, the quarterback for next season
Mhm.
if CJ Carr goes to the draft, which is, you know, he's getting hyped up a lot. It makes sense. I think I always look at it like, man, it's so easy to overreact to those clips. Like, yeah, it was a great pass, and he looks great in person. Gerard,
Mhm.
don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, he looks awesome. Like, great, you know, physically looks great. But Noah Grubbs, remember Gerard was with the twos on the last day that I was there in terms of tempo at the start of practice. Well, it was Grubbs yesterday. So I know it's easy to talk about the new shiny toy because Gerard's there, and then there's the throw where he nails it. But you know, see the same thing in the spring of Grubbs dropping in those dimes and stuff too. And um, definitely, I'm excited about like the talent on the freshmen of the freshman receivers, but other than Bubba Frazier, no one else was working with the top group. And at least up to this point, no one else has. So we haven't heard like, oh, Devin Fitzgerald made a move or Caden Finley made a move where they're like clearly in the mix. And it's not to say those guys aren't making plays and one-on-ones or in 7-on-7 or whatever. But things can look great on the clips and it don't matter. Like it
Yeah.
does not matter at all. So I mean, I think it's a little bit different when it's like, hey, somebody comes up with an interception because, hey, those are rare, you know?
For
So
sure.
when
Yeah.
somebody comes up with a pick, whatever. But if you're going to count like touchdowns in a course of a practice, a lot of guys score touchdowns in the course of practice because they're throwing to the end zone a lot and doing these kind of things. It's like you're going to throw a lot more deep balls in one-on-ones. You're going to have red zone periods. You're going to do all this. So I just don't think there's too much to learn from all that kind of stuff other than just kind of building on what we already know. He's a very, very talented kid.
I think speaking of like you looking good, freshman looking good, um, and not really knowing. I this is somewhat informed speculation, but I think Joey O'Brien's having a really good camp. It's just kind of under the radar. There's little nuggets that you get from what they're putting out there, and just things that I've kind of heard. Like I think he's having a really good camp. And I remind you, Sean Taylor didn't play as a freshman at Miami. Just saying. And I'm not saying he's Sean Taylor. That's not what the comp I'm making. What I'm saying is like sometimes there's just too much talent. This kind of goes to the conversation we had about Kyle Hamilton last show. Where like if freshman Kyle Hamilton came into this team, it would be a lot harder to get on the field with this group. It just would. They're deep. Like he wouldn't. First of all, he didn't play. He didn't start over Gilman and Elliott. He certainly wouldn't start over Schuler and Tate Breonte Johnson. And it would be hard for him to pass up Luke Talich. Luke Talich can play to that level right now. I mean, he's a very good player. So but the point is like I think O'Brien is, and I don't say at the expense of Long. That's not what I'm saying.
No, it's not.
I think Ethan Long's having a good camp. I also think that too. It's just like I think like Joey O'Brien it basically is a hit.
Well, we said it before too that in many other years we'd be like, yeah, Ethan Long is a starter, and oh my God, he's gonna have a monster year. That's what people would be talking about, but it's what they have in front of them there now. So those guys, like, it's basically what we're saying is like, it doesn't matter how much those guys play this year, they're gonna be darn good players.
Yeah,
and
like it's not an indication.
And the other thing is too is perfect example of this too. Equinemius St. Brown like caught one ball in as a true freshman.
Yeah.
End up having a block punt against USC that helped them win that game, right? Like that went for a touchdown, right? I think you're just going to see some of those guys, and it doesn't mean that they won't maybe become bigger parts of the season depending on injuries or whatever. But Notre Dame just has depth now where there's going to be guys who don't play that much in year one that could be stars in year two.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of where it's at. And also where they could just make huge jumps and end up, making a big impact in other ways on
Yeah.
special teams or whatever, right? So Isaiah Foskey should have played as a true freshman in like most sense, and obviously the 5 for 5 he would have. It said he was like a 4 game guy.
Mm-hmm.
If people recall, he had the block punt against another guy with a block punt, and he had a bunch of block punts in his career. The first one was against Stanford, final game of the regular season that year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, and you can look in hindsight and say, man, he should have played, and obviously he was a great player and all this, right? Well, that year, that was when they had Aquara, Kareem, Ogundeji, um, Jam- Jameer Jones, like NFL guys. When is this guy getting on the field, right? So, it, even to say like Rodney Dunham, I do think Rodney Dunham is he's going to find a way to make an impact. I don't know like what his status is right now in terms of like, hey, maybe he doesn't know enough of the playbook or whatever, because obviously things expand once you get into the fall. Who knows, right? But even if he doesn't have like this kind of like, oh, he's not playing around this, it's probably because like Keon Keeley is like balling and like playing really, really good. And Logan Thomas, who I thought what Charlie Parcher said about Logan Thomas yesterday was really insightful, because that's the first time anyone has ever talked about him in that way,
Mm-hmm.
where other than, yeah, he's just, he can help us in this thing, but he can't do this. Like, no, he talked about like he can play. Like he can play. I know he's smaller, but he can still play and he can do this and he's looked good and all of this, right? So I think that's something that wasn't happening before, and I think you're seeing guys like develop and break through, which should happen, because it is kind of like a now or never thing for Thomas, because they got Dunham and Ewatade, and they got guys coming next year, and it's going to be tough. But I think it's just what it is now. It's like, if it's hard, it's really, really hard. Like if Matty Augustine too, like regardless of him, if he wasn't a starter, he's looked like a guy who could be a starter.
Yeah.
And that's just where they're at, where there's like, hey, a really talented guy might not start or might not be in the 2 deep. There's going to be a bunch of guys like that. And we'll see too. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of freshmen that maybe don't have it all figured out at the beginning of the year. And let's just say, whatever, hypothetically, they beat the brakes off Wisconsin or whatever, and you don't see, and you're like, okay, they didn't play this freshman, or they didn't say that. Maybe 5 weeks later, that freshman is like made himself into a guy.
Yeah. So just to give people a little bit of insight of why I'm kind of saying O'Brien's having a really good camp. The first day they went 7-on-7 and team, and on the main field where the closest to us was first and second team guys, and on the other field was like third and fourth team, like younger, right? So most of the freshmen were over there, especially on defense. Like Rodney Dunham was over there, for example. We talked about that. And so the first team came out, safeties, Schuler and Johnson. The second team came out, it was Long and it was Talek. And then they ran the first team again. And then the second team came out again, but this time it was O'Brien with Talek. And they had moved Ethan Long over to the other team, to the other field, just so they had someone to rep at that safety spot. On the first day, like they thought enough about O'Brien to be like, we want you on this field at some point. And so then they move Long over there. Like that just kind of shows. And then they show him with the interception on the main field again, because you can see other players that are on the field with him. Like that's kind of how I feel like, hey, like they're very, very excited about him. The other part is like Pat Sapkowski says, do you guys think O'Brien's ceiling is higher than any other safety on the team? I don't know that it's higher than Breontae Johnson's. I don't. Breontae Johnson is big. He is fast. He is physical. Like, I don't know that there is a substantial difference in the athletic ability of Joey O'Brien and Breontae Johnson. There's a thickness to Breontae at his size. I don't know what he's listed at. He's got to be 6'3". He might be listed at 6'2". This is a big, big football player. And so Like, I don't think that he has the highest ceiling. I don't know that for sure. And I think that is the best thing that could have happened to Joey O'Brien, because he has been the best athlete on every field he's ever taken in his life. And then you get to Notre Dame and you say Breonte Johnson, dude. Luke Tolick, dude. Ethan Long is a big football player as well. Like, you want to play at Notre Dame, you better be in your playbook. You bet all the little things. You better be on point with all those little things. You can't come out here and just be a great athlete, because these are all great athletes. Like, I think he specifically came into a great situation for him and his development. So that's kind of where I'm at with things at the safety position. Sky high on O'Brien. I think he came into a great spot. Let's talk about another kind of headline-ish thing that came out from camp. Jerome Bettis Jr. in the drills, taking 1 reps at the boundary position. We were talking about it before the show. I don't know that this has any implications for someone like Micah Gilbert or Cam Williams. The implication to me is that Jerome Bettis Jr. has made a very substantial jump, as we've talked about, as a football player and as a wide receiver, to the point where the staff feels like, hey, this guy could get on the field. We need to get him reps with Carr and the other ones, because he could play for Notre Dame in 2026. That was my takeaway from it. What were your thoughts on it, Jamie?
Yeah, I think when someone's doing that, they've earned it, right? They've earned it. And so I think that's the way to kind of look at it. Because, I mean, there's been a whole bunch of guys that are there that it's like, you would think like, hey, it's their turn. They should be pushing for it. Like Cam Williams, even though like the receiver position wasn't as good like the last couple of years, he couldn't break through to that, right? Like he never was getting reps. This is the first time Cam Williams was getting reps with the ones at all, was in fall camp here, right? Like that we had been to a practice and seen that. But just obvious, he's like, I mean, you look at him, the guy's shredded. Like this picture of him here. He's really developed and taken a big leap, and think he's a guy who can play. I mean, I don't know how much he's going to play, because it might just mean that they think enough of him to put him in the mix. But clearly, like, that's someone who has kind of defied expectations in a lot of ways and put himself in a position to compete.
Yeah. So good job by him. You know, I know when he was recruited, it was kind of like, what's he going to play? People talking about playing on defense. Is he Notre Dame caliber? All we've done is gush about the talent on this team, and he's put himself in a position where he's getting 1 reps. So credit to him and the work that he's put in. Credit to Mike Brown for, the development of a player like that. So good job by everybody. Let's move on to the defensive line talk. Charlie Partridge met with the media yesterday. And a PSA for everybody, in a little inside baseball into how things work, because this is something that I just kind of figured out as when I was there last week. I highly recommend everyone goes to irishsportsdaily.com and reads the transcript that Matt puts out from these position coaches. Like, so Partridge and Rudolph were yesterday. And the reason I say that is because the way it works is there's the lower level where the cameras are in those interviews. So if you just watch the interviews on YouTube that are posted, you won't get the totality of the things that
You're
they
getting
say.
A tiny piece.
Because what happens is before that, they go upstairs and they talk to everybody else off camera. I mean, it's not off the record. It's just there's no cameras up there. So you talk to them, and then the transcript goes out to everybody, every outlet. And so then so what we're about to reference, when I'm about to reference with Partridge and Armel Mukam, this was not on the video portion of what you would have seen on YouTube. So go to the sites, like read what they're saying to the rest of the media that's upstairs is what I'm saying to you. So just something that, so I know you paid very close attention to this, Jamie, your beautiful boy, Armel Mukam. Charlie Partridge talked about how he watched tape of him before he showed up at Notre Dame, and then like gave him a call, had a chance to meet with him, wanted to get a feel for the player and who he was, and they were able to recruit him back to Notre Dame. Talk about what he said about Mukum and the things that he liked that he saw on film, and then we'll go on to the rest of the defensive line in a second.
Yeah, well, I think he was obviously very complimentary of Mukum, and talked about exactly what you said about how he what he saw from him and why he wanted him back. And basically, like, he's a guy who has the kind of like twitchiness and explosiveness and at his size, that is rare, right? Mm-hmm. And for someone like that, there's a more to unlock there, but there was enough. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was talking about him. It's why I said, like, he was a guy. I mean, people want to make we make the jokes about it's Canadian. It's literally because he is a guy. If you look at him, you're like, man, he is a big dude who is absolutely explosive. There's things about his game. He was just super raw. Like, he obviously has not played a ton of football, not played, like, period, right? Like, he hasn't played that many years of football, hasn't played that much inside. I think there's a lot too. Like, if you look at, like, when people want to bring up Chris Burgess,
yeah,
it's very similar stuff with him, because Chris Burgess was, like, not really developed in a way as a defensive lineman, because they had him moving all over the place. He was a guy who's gained a ton of weight now. He's got to play inside. It's a totally different ball game. But just looking at, I mean, Greg, you've seen him walk into practice. The guy's a monster. He's an absolutely monstrous dude. And he moves not like a dude who's built that size.
Right.
But he is where, Mukum was probably a year and a half ago. And Mukum, it's not like, oh, the light went on. He has turned that kind of raw ability. And as Partridge said, I was looking at his raw ability, his ability to move, his ability to bend, how hard he played. And those were things I want to be a part of. Right. And that's really kind of like what it's all about. And I'd be shocked if he doesn't play some really, really good football for the Irish this year. That's pretty definitive. That's pretty definitive of what he kind of thinks. And it also says exactly why he's been running with the ones, right? And so obviously he's a guy who still needs to develop and, like, get better. And there's things that he can work on and get more consistent at. But to me, that just sounds like a guy who's, even if he is not playing and, like, making a big impact, or, like, he'll play, but even if he's not making a huge impact early on, he could be somebody that it's like, whoa, he helped take the defense to another level because of how, because of his talent, right? And I think you would say similar to Jason Onye last year, right? Mm-hmm. Where it took Jason Onye a really, really long time to kind of get to a level of consistency. And I think, he's, in a way, he's still kind of working through that. And it's his 6th year, right?
Yeah.
Well, obviously Mukum's a little bit younger, but he's been around for a while. And this is just his opportunity, right? His opportunity to go and really be a dude. And I think that's one of those things where it's the hardest position to develop, I think, out of any outside of quarterback, is defensive tackle specifically, because you can be a great athlete, you can do all this, but if you don't have, like, the recognition, you don't have the violence, you don't have the awareness, you don't know the scheme, you can't play within it, it doesn't matter. Like, you can't just go and freestyle it. It's not a position you can do that. Like, even at receiver, you can there have been guys that it's like, well, we just throw him a bunch of fades and he can just go up and get it, or he can run. We don't ask him to run too many routes, but he just runs us, like, can't do that defensive tackle, because if you have a bad step, you have this, you're getting double team, you're getting blown off the ball, and you're screwing up the play for everybody, right? So, but when a guy like that has all those tools and he starts putting it together, I mean, that just absolutely makes everyone on the defense better. So sounds like he's, you know, pretty bullish on him, and that's exciting. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah. And it sounds like he's bullish on a bunch of guys. That we was asked about the rotation inside specifically, and who are your top two? And he said they're still working through it. We don't. He doesn't know who the top two are. He said there's a group of 4 to 6 who he thinks can play, and he included Sean Civillano in that. And he was someone that I kind of flagged early. Just took note of the fact that practice starts at a certain time, and we're getting there early because we want to see these guys walk in and get some impressions and stuff. And he's walking in before we even get there, and that's both days, right? So look, stuff like that, it shows a little something, right? It shows a little bit of their personality. It shows a little bit of their intentions. He named Sean Sevillano as someone who got into that top 6. Did you expect that, Jamie? I mean, a body type like his, does that kind of change things for Notre Dame? I mean, obviously they've got really big dudes. We just mentioned Armel Mukam. We mentioned Elijah Hughes, who's a big boy. If Sean Sevillano is going to be in that group, I mean, he's another 330 plus, 325, something like that guy. Does it's just more beef up front and just kind of solidifies everything when you can get a guy like him, making a move in the defense.
No, it's not surprising at all because of, he was clearly there in that top 6. They had what they had working with, the ones, like, yes, it was Mukum and Brew on the first day. But with the 2s, they had Onye, Tion Gray, and then they had Seviano was one of, and Hughes were there too, also working in. Those were the 6. Those were the guys that were clearly in there. And I mean, Seviano is like noticeable. Obviously, he's lost some weight. He looks really good. Svelte, like for a guy like him, he's definitely in better shape than he's been. He's 313 pounds. Like, he was like 330, 340 before, and he didn't need to be. He just didn't need to be. He was just too big. He was too big, and now he's clearly, I mean, he's still obviously a big man. Tion Gray is obviously a big man too. He's 320 pounds, but even he's down. He was 333 in the spring, right? So that's another guy who's, I mean, you don't need to be bigger than 320. Like, that's plenty big enough. Mm-hmm. But when if you look at, like, in general, the whole thing is like, they don't have the guys anymore where they're 280. Jason Manarola and Howard Cross and Donovan Heinisch. I mean, those guys were all good players in their own right, and Cross was like a great player. But there's a difference. You can have one of those guys, and Brew is kind of like one of those guys, but if that's your whole group as a whole, that's a problem. And even how Brew is built, he's 6'1", 285. The guy is a friggin' fire hydrant. Like, he is jacked, right? So it's different. And yeah, I love what they have at defensive tackle. I think it's the best group that they've had there in quite some time, just in total, just like depth from like 1 to 6, where you see like there, and they've obviously been pretty good. I thought one thing, like, Al Washington and Nick Sebastian did a great job developing those guys. Like Gabriel Rubio, obviously he ended up being a 6th round pick. Man, that guy, did he ever develop under them? He really, really just got better and better, and he was a beast. He was a beast. But that's why a guy like Seviano is important. That's why Tion Gray is important, because Rubio wasn't a guy who was going to be a dominant pass rusher by any means, but I don't care who you line up across from him. That guy better bring his lunch pail, because he is going to win at the point of attack most of the time, and be pretty dominant, right? So I think that's just kind of where they're at now, and I like the versatility there. I think there's a bunch of guys who can rush the passer there. Like, Mukum is probably has the highest pass rush potential out of that entire group, right? So, and like, you would say Hughes and Brew are the two smallest of the group. Although I think Hughes is probably like he's closer to 300, so he's not like too small. But
He also made the freaks list.
yeah, those guys both made the freaks list, right? Like, by the way, Notre Dame has 3 defensive linemen on the freaks list. Never happened before. Like, and there's some other guys that could arguably be labeled freaks too that are already on the defensive line too. They're really really deep and really talented.
Yeah. Charlie Partridge talked about Keon Keeley's coming on right now. And he talked about the process of, in the spring, it was, he said they put a lot on the players, and it's just like he's trying to figure out the terminology and what they're doing. And we've spoken a bunch, not about Keon Keeley, but just a lot of players who it's like when you're kind of swimming mentally, it's hard to then completely let it loose, in a rep or on the football field, because you're talking about new techniques, you're talking about new terminology, you're talking about different things that you've been doing for the last 3 years, and now you're having to put it into practice, and it's not easy, right? And it's not easy for everybody. And he said now he's dialed into that stuff. He's into his play. He's has a better understanding of the playbook, and he's starting to play faster, right? And we've seen this so many times over the years. So that's a good development for Keon Keeley. Obviously, he looks very good physically. So that's good development for him. You talked about Logan Thomas, which was interesting. I mean, I think that Charlie Partridge, listening to him, it was especially on Mookum, right, and on Logan Thomas as well, is like what we see, he might see something completely different. And I think that it's not surprising that so many guys have kind of started to come up, because he somehow has a way to, he has a big room in terms of numbers. He invests in them personally in a way that I don't want to make a comparison. He seems to do a very good job of investing in these guys personally and knowing where they're at and how to reach them and how to kind of elevate their own specific, games. I mean, he talked about Logan Thomas. It's like, look, he's not very big, but he can play. Like, and he's gotten the reps, so they don't give reps out to anybody, and he's doing that. So I think that's a big deal. People are talking about Rodney Dunham right now, and there's not a ton of talk of him. He wasn't asked about him, so he's not going to talk about him if he's not asked. So it doesn't speak to anything of where he's at. But the fact that Logan Thomas is out there shows he's done something to impress his line coach.
Yeah, and he did say Ronnie Dunham is.
He did include him, yes. So
he did name. So he is included. He is included with the top group. So because he basically said like after that, everybody else is like there's a distance. So if anyone is thinking, well, Ebenezer Abatade, just based on that, him not saying, well, Rodney and Ebenezer, whatever. It's like no. So
I'll find the quote and then you can continue.
Yeah, but I thought actually the stuff that he was saying about Thomas was really interesting. Because I think it was also smart in talking about how how they're going to utilize him. And they got to know that hey, if they're in a specific defense, they're not going to be maybe in some weeks too, where they're going to say, well, maybe one of those guys can kick down inside and something. We're going to shift to a bear front. Well, he's not going to be on the field for that.
Yeah.
He's not going to be on the field for that. And why would they do that? Right. So
tell people what a bear front is.
So bear front is basically you have 3 interior guys that are lined up on both guards and the center, right? And then you have 2 guys essentially outside of it too, right? So you see that Notre Dame obviously lines up in bear front quite often. They do it a lot to it's usually to stop the run or to give a different kind of look for pass rush or whatever. But that's something that they would do with someone where Bryce Young, it makes more sense for him to kind of kick inside.
Yeah.
Plenty of other guys, JJB, they would kick inside like that. Those guys are different. And even those guys maybe not even be the most comfortable with it. But oftentimes too, Notre Dame will come out and they played it with Anye has been an edge. But basically they're going to do that. And then they shift inside and they play 3 D tackles across the front. Right. So they're not going to ask Logan Thomas to do that because that'd be dumb, right? That would be dumb. And he talked about that, right? Like they're going to protect him from those things. But he's really quick. He's powerful for his size, and he's kind of put himself in a position. And he is like, because I never thought that he was someone who wasn't working hard. There's some people, I think offensive linemen specifically, when like someone's like, they can't put on the weight. I'm like, in history, everybody can put on the weight because it doesn't have to be pretty weight for
Right.
for
Yeah,
offensive linemen, especially, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you see some of these guys shrink down to nothing when they're done. But some people just have really hard time putting on the weight, and he's obviously working at it, and he's heavier than he was, and maybe he just will never be somebody who's going to be like 240. I just think that's probably never going to happen for him. I think one kind of advantage, though, of having a guy like Charlie Partridge, who's obviously been a very good coach, and he's coached in the NFL, and he's coached, guys who've been to the, NFL dudes like, J.J. Watt and Kalijah Kancey and some of these guys. But when you're at Wisconsin, you're at Florida Atlantic, you're at Pitt, you're not recruiting the guys. A lot of times you're just taking a guy like, man, this guy's undersized, but boy, is he explosive. His first step is outstanding, and he's never going to be this, but I got to get this guy to coach him because he could be the best pass rusher we have or whatever, right? Like, so you're going to take chances on some of those guys because you see something there, maybe that another coach might not see because they're like, I don't know how to coach that because they have never had to coach that.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's probably like a pretty big advantage for Partridge, is that he's had to coach all these different body types and these different guys over the years, and he's had a lot of success with them, right? With a bunch of different guys.
Yeah. Let me just get the quote here. The question was if Boubacar Traore and Bryce Young are the top two defensive ends. Right now, you would say there are top two. There's significant improvement by them, but also by Keon, LT, Logan Thomas, and Rodney Dunham is certainly in the mix right there. The other guys are in the developmental phase, but we feel good about those five right now. So for those wondering about Rodney Dunham, he was in the five that he mentioned. It was like they're probably going to get on the football field. So we're coming up on an hour, so we'll talk about the what it might look like in sub packages and rushing the passer on another show. We obviously have a ton of time. We'll get more information as well on the football team because how Notre Dame chooses to do that versus, because we're talking about the defensive ends. We're very excited about them. Notre Dame also has Jalen Sneed, who can get after the passer. They have KVA, who is as good as anyone on the team, anyone in college football in getting after the passer. Drake Bowen, I believe, was second on the team in sacks last year. So they've got some guys who can get after the passer. And there's kind of a mix there of doing it with linebackers, and also, Marcus Freeman has openly talked about wanting to win with four. And so these are all questions that we can talk about and get into on later episodes. So it's a good place to end it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, hit that like, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we'll be going live. We'll be back next week, Monday, Power Hour with Mike and Jamie, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Hit and Hustle. It's going to be very fun. Check into irishsportsdaily.com. There's a ton of content going up all the time on interviews and practice reports and things like that. So have a good weekend, everyone. We will talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.